Well, g'day everybody. It's good to be with you guys here again at week 3 of the Meet Jesus series. Really good to be with you guys here. Just wanted to make a quick note of we've got something new up on the screen. But set up assistant Jeremy here. I just want to introduce that for the next few weeks. We're just going to have some intro kind of questions that you can 100% choose to ignore. You can 100% choose to chat about them if you'd like to. There's no pressure to engage in those, but we'll have something somewhat related to the talk of the day on the screen as you guys come in. That's there for you if you want it. And if not, well good, you guys just keep chatting away as you do so well. I think we've all been here before, so I don't need to tell anyone where the bathrooms are. But today, we're going to be thinking a little bit thinking a little bit about what is happening with the world. Jeremy, my setup assistant, has my clicker for me, which is fantastic. And so we're going to do a little bit of a trivia game here. And so we've got what is the most important problem facing the world today? It's a little bit of a question. We're going to have when Australians were surveyed and interviewed, their most popular answer was on the screen here. So if you feel up for it, hands a gun for A, hands on head for B, or I'm going to go to phone. I don't know what the wallet up is, but I'm going to go phone if you think C. What do you guys reckon is the most important problem facing the world today? The Aussies say, consensus in the room. The answer that the people voted for was not revealed in that, but it was A. They said it was A. So interestingly, they think that terrorism and war and safety is a big problem that we're facing today. I'm not sure how recent that survey is, but we're going to be talking a little bit about that today in our talk and how our world is going. So with that, I'm going to invite Jeremy on up, and we're going to hear from him.
Good to see you all again today. Soup today, not much bad, very nice. Call again. As James discussed, we're going to think a bit about what's wrong with the world today, but I want to start by telling you of 2 big revolutions that have happened in world history. Now, the first one, this is Nicholas Copernicus. He was a Polish mathematician and an astronomer who lived in the 15th century. And in the realm of astronomy at the time, the study of space and the universe, while he was alive, it was agreed upon, generally speaking, that the Earth was at the centre of the universe. Now, Copernicus disagreed. He actually put forth the theory that actually it was the Earth that orbited around the Sun. The Earth wasn't even at the centre of our solar system. The Earth certainly wasn't at the centre of the universe. Now, this theory changed absolutely everything. It was against what the scientific thought and generally spoken of agreement was. And suddenly people saw everything in a new light. This reality of this truth changed everything in an instant as the truth was revealed. It came to be known as the Copernican Revolution. Now, this had massive significance and it altered how people understood the universe. But I now want to tell you about the second revolution, and that is that 2,000 years ago, Jesus entered into the culture around him and started another revolution. But this one was far, far more significant than the Copernican Revolution. Jesus' revolution, he came into a place that we even exist in now, where there were many people and perspectives on where they would find the meaning of life. And for us, it's that people try to find our meaning in life to do with what we think is true, in being true to myself, as we've talked about. But Jesus said, no, that's not where the meaning of life is found. Jesus said the meaning of life is not found in you or in what you do, not option me, but in option he. We saw that last week and over the last few weeks, how we have been created by God for a relationship with Him. Which means, just like Earth, you are not the centre of the universe. We are not the centre of the universe. Our lives weren't designed to revolve around us. Our lives were designed to revolve around Him. And this is a true fact that starts to take on a whole new meaning in understanding our purpose in life and what all of life is about. And Jesus says not only that it's got to do with this new meaning, but it's actually got to do with who He is that explains our big purpose in life. And Jesus isn't just an expert or a professor like Nicholas Copernicus, but He actually is God. Jesus is God. He's the one who made everything, designed everything, and designed the meaning that you and I were put here for. Now, if that's not true, we've talked a bit about this, then we can ignore Him. But if it is true, it changes everything. The truth that Jesus is God should actually alter how we view life, our whole purpose and meaning. Now, I want to say that the life of Jesus takes on a new meaning for us, and if that's the case, He's not just a random kind of person in history that we can ignore. If Jesus really is God, who came to be a man, and He therefore must have come to earth on purpose for some reason. And so this is the question we're actually going to look at today. What is the meaning of Jesus' life? Why did Jesus come to earth? And what does that have to do with us? Now, thankfully, it's not a mystery for us to work out. We actually can come to know that from Luke's Gospel, which we're going to look into again today. But throughout all of His life, Jesus made it clear that there were two primary reasons why He came to earth. And they're connected. And so I'm going to show you both of them. So a good summary of the first objective comes in the second half of Luke's Gospel, and it's going to be here on the screen. It's Luke chapter 19, verse 10, where Jesus said, "The Son of Man," referring to Himself, "came to seek and to save the lost." So Jesus says He's come here to save. The word save means rescue. Have you ever had to be rescued in some sort of a situation? I want you to imagine that you and I, or one of us, we're at Soldiers Beach, alright? You're at Soldiers Beach, here's you, and you're being swept out into the ocean. It's not going great. No matter what you do, you're being dragged out further and further from shore, and it gets to the point where you lose all hope. You're on your way to New Zealand, or maybe you're on your way to the bottom of the ocean, when suddenly a floaty surfboard kind of hits you. And you look up, and there's a blonde-haired head. He leans over, his name's probably like Bodie or someone, and here he is. And he says, "You right, mate?" And you say, "No." And he says, "You need a hand?" And he puts out his hand, and you take it. Rescue. Now, rescue involves two things. Firstly, it involves action. It involves doing something. Right? Now, secondly, it involves multiple people. There must be a rescuer and a person being rescued. Someone acting on behalf of someone else. Rescue is doing something for someone who can't do it for themselves. And Jesus identifies Himself as a rescuer. That's what it meant when He said He came to save. And He makes this clear by saying this statement. And He therefore shows that there was more to His life than just the miracles and the teaching and the wonderful power that He showed. Because as important as they were, He said that he came to save others. But this wasn't Jesus' kind of only mission or one of those two purposes. There was purpose number one. But this second purpose or outcome that is connected, he spoke about over and over and over, again and again. So come with me now. We're going to look into Luke again. Come to page 30. Flick over to page 30. I'm going to be reading Luke chapter 9, verse 22. I'll read that for us now. So, and he said, "The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. And he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life." So what does Jesus say he came here to do?
Die.
Die! Exactly! He said that he must be killed. He must be killed. So for around 3 years, Jesus has been teaching and performing miracles. He's attracted large groups of people who are following him. His life and teaching have been utterly unique and life-transforming, but then it all ended. Jesus grew popular with some people, but with others, the religious leaders, they hated him. And so they arrested him. He stood before a trial, before the religious leaders and the Roman authorities, and he was sentenced to death. He was then mocked and beaten. He was tortured, embarrassed, and then he was crucified. Let's turn now to Luke 23, which is page 47. Where Luke 23 is quite a long chapter, so if you flick to page 47, I'm going to read from verse 44.
Page 74.
Sorry, page 74, yes, page 74. And we're going to read from verse 44. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. For the sun stopped shining, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Jesus called out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." When he had said this, he breathed his last. From the outside, this looks like an absolute tragedy. A tragic waste of an incredible life, you might think. It looks like a failure. This was the man who was meant to save people. But he seems to be unable to even save himself. And yet when you look closer and look at the evidence of what really happened, about what this really means, that Jesus dies here, you start to realise something. You realise something revolutionary. Something revolutionary, that there's far more to this scene than first meets the eye. Something bigger is going on that changes absolutely everything. So let's look again at the passage, and let me point out a few things. So in verse 44, firstly, you've got darkness covering the land. Something big and supernatural is happening at this point. In the Bible, often darkness is used to represent judgment or punishment. Now, secondly, you've got Jesus crying out as he's dying. And yet what he says here seems to be quite strange. So if you look in verse 46, Jesus says, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." It sounds like an acceptance of his death. But there's actually more going on here. This is not just a random thing that Jesus says. He's actually quoting part of the Old Testament that's pointing toward Jesus. And what that's telling us is that Jesus isn't just kind of accepting his death, but he's making it clear that God the Father is in control of what's happening at that point in time, at this moment. That this, Jesus' death, is part of God's overall plan. That Jesus' death was part of God's plan all along. Which is pretty crazy to think. Why would God the Father plan his own son's death? The reason is for us. At his death, Jesus was acting as our substitute. He experiences the punishment that we deserve for living lives that are in rejection against God. He was dying to rescue us. Let me explain. It's a heavy book. Imagine this book is your life. So, imagine every book is a page of your life, and in it contains everything that you've ever said, done, or thought. Now, let me ask you, what would you do if I could read a copy of your book? You might kind of shrivel up and be like, ooh, I don't think I want you to see that. I can tell you what I'd do. I'd run out of here. I wouldn't want you to read it. I'd probably jump on a plane, go overseas, and change my name. There's some embarrassing stuff that we all have in our life, and some stuff that we know is not loving to God and loving to others. We would be deeply ashamed for people to know the things that we've said, thought, and done. The reason why is because if we are honest with ourselves, we have not loved God and loved others. None of us have lived perfect lives. None of us have lived perfect days. If the truth about ourselves was revealed, we would be rightly devastated. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm not just saying that about you. I'm saying that about me. It's us. We're all in this situation, and every single person you've ever met. The Bible calls these things sin. Sin means the things that we do that are against the way that God wants us to live. It springs from not wanting to live for Him in our lives, live according to His plan. And you see, this is the difficult, really difficult and hard truth that Jesus reveals to us in the Bible. He says that when it comes to what is wrong with the world, it's all too easy to kind of point the picture or point the issue somewhere else. But what Jesus presents to us is a different answer. What Jesus presents, that what's wrong with the world is not politics or greed or power, it's actually what's in here. It's what's in us. It's our rejection of God, our sin. And so, while I can't read your book, and I won't, the thing is that God will. He knows you. He knows me. We can't hide from Him. Now, what Jesus has told us here is, I think, sobering and confronting stuff that we need to come to hear. So we're going to take a moment now to just pause. Feel free to just take the time to just reflect and think about what you've heard. Maybe grab some water. You're welcome to chat at the table. We'll have a question on the screen. We'll kick off again in just a minute. So I hope that was interesting. If you had some discussions there, or some questions that flowed off that first bit. I want to say what we have been discussing about sin. There's actually something good about it. It actually means that your life matters, and it means that what you do matters. The way that works is, suppose this was your life. There's your book. Suppose that, let's say in this hand, God is in the ceiling in terms of He is perfect, perfect, perfect. He's all the way up there. What we've seen is that the Bible has said, and Jesus has said, that our life, our sin, which is very great, it separates us from God. It actually says that our sin has the consequence of becoming a barrier between us and God. Now, we know that because the Bible says that God is pure. He is so pure and perfect that even if there was only one line in our book of a sin that we have done, that would still separate us from God. Only that would be enough to separate us from God. But it's not just that. We also see in the Bible, even though we are so sinful, God loves us. So the question is, how can that work? God hates sin. He needs to punish sin. He can't just ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist and like it doesn't even matter. He can't just wipe it under the rug. And so we have for ourselves two problems. Firstly, it's that we have lots of evil written in our books in our life. But the second is that God must punish evil. And yet, we also have this reality that God loves us. And so, the way that it all works out, we see it at the cross. So that's why the cross is so significant in the Bible, to Christianity, to God. So let me illustrate what was happening when Jesus was hanging on the cross. So suppose now, remember this represents you. Again, the ceiling represents God, the Father. In this hand is Jesus. Now Jesus came to earth, and between Jesus and God the Father, there was no sin. Absolutely none. He perfectly obeyed the will of God the Father in everything he thought, said, and did. He always pleased his Father. Now, while Jesus was on the cross, God took the sin of every people in every age and poured it out all upon Jesus. You could say, kind of weirdly, but at that moment, at the cross, Jesus became the most sinful man the world has ever seen, as he bore the sin of anyone who turns and trusts in Jesus. The sin of millions and billions of people across time. Believers in every age being poured out upon Jesus. And so at that point, something amazing happened. Remember, God must punish all evil, and so when he poured out the punishment upon Jesus on the cross, all the wrath and anger and punishment that you and I deserve, it actually meant that Jesus took our punishment. And so we become clean. So it means that when a person believes in Jesus Christ, God considers them absolutely pure, sinless, and purpose, just like Jesus, because he has taken the sin of us upon himself. And when you understand that, when you understand this scene of Jesus on the cross, it takes on a massive meaning and significance to life. It makes sense of that verse that we were just reading. It makes sense that when the sky went dark, that this was an act of God putting judgment upon Jesus for our sin. It makes sense that why, when Jesus died on the cross, he says, "Into your hands I commit my spirit." Where Jesus is actually saying to God the Father, "You are in charge of this, and I give my life up for them." And this is the complete reason why Jesus came to earth. He came to die. We also see that's exactly why the curtain split in two, you might have read. In Jesus' time, you see, the Jewish people at the time had a temple in Jerusalem, and it had this really massive curtain that was inches thick. And this curtain represented separation from God and the people, between God and man, the separation created by sin. And at this moment, when Jesus dies on the cross, the curtain is torn open. And what that means is that Jesus has paid for our sins so that we can have access to God. And that is the very thing we've been talking about that you and I are created for. A fixed up, loving relationship with God. It's been made possible by Jesus with what he did at the cross. So when Jesus died, it looked like a tragedy, a failure of his mission. He had told everyone that he was here to seek and to save the lost, and death seemed to prove that this claim was just delusional. He couldn't even save himself. Yet the truth of what happened is revolutionary. In fact, Jesus' mission to rescue, to save, was not destroyed by his death. His rescue would come through his death. And who is it that Jesus has rescued? Well, he also told us that. He told us who he's rescued. He's come to seek and to save the lost. And that makes sense of who we are. We are people who are spiritually lost, you and me, and Jesus came to rescue us, to save us. He rescues us by taking the punishment that we deserve, because we can't rescue ourselves. We need help. So, what is the meaning of Jesus' life? The meaning of Jesus' life is love. He loves his Father so much that he is willing to die because God the Father wants him to. He loves you and I, even though we haven't loved him. Jesus' death isn't a tragedy, it's actually the most beautiful act in all of world history. It's the moment where Jesus dies to pay the price for our sin, our rejection of God, in order that we would be justly looked at by God in a way that we can have a right relationship with him, pure and clean before God. It's love in action, and it's directed towards you and me. And so what does all this mean for us? Well, what it actually means is that we all have a choice to make. Either we accept or reject Jesus. You can accept Jesus, take hold of his arm, take hold of his offer of rescue, where he took your place, the punishment that you deserve on the cross. You can accept this, or you can reject Jesus' offer. And that means you will end up taking God's punishment upon yourself. That means suffering God's anger. That's what Jesus tells us in the Bible. The rightful anger that we deserve. But rescue is there. It's yours if you want it. And it simply looks like accepting Jesus. We're going to understand more of what that looks like over the next few weeks. But I'm going to leave it there and I'll pass back over to James.
Thanks for that, Jeremy.
Hey guys, I'm going to get things going again for us. James mentioned that there's a special guest coming in. That's pretty exciting and great to get to meet. It was James himself. So James. So yeah, we're going to get to hear James' story today. So it's pretty cool. James, tell us a bit about yourself. What do you get up to during the week?
Yeah, my name's James. I'm married to Georgie, and Georgie's pregnant at the moment, which is very exciting. So we've got 14 weeks until our first child, and yeah, we live in Blue Haven. And I am doing an apprenticeship at church, meaning that I get to, if you're a carpenter apprentice, you spend a lot of time, working with wood and whatnot, and I work with the Bible, and people, so it's great, and I love it.
Yeah, great, nice. So James, you didn't always know Jesus. What was your life like before you came to know Jesus?
Yeah, I grew up on the Central Coast in a very loving family. None of my parents knew Jesus or really had a lot of input into my life to point towards him. but they loved me very much, and I grew up here and played a lot of sport, and I had a great education, and I think they just really wanted me to have great opportunities in life, which I was very thankful for. And so I think then I had great opportunity. So what is the best life I can live? And I had the Australian dream, I think, of play a lot of sport at a very high level. I played water polo, and I was playing like the NRL equivalent of water polo in Australia, and I got into physiotherapy, which is a great job. I got to work with kids, and I loved it. I had a girlfriend, and we were going to get married, and we were going to move into a house, and we were saving up to buy a house. So having a house and sporting success and great job, and I think that was all going really well for me. So yeah, that's kind of what my life looked like. Just was living at Tuggerah. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So working toward the Australian dream, so as to say.
Yeah.
So then, how did you come to meet Jesus? What happened there?
Yeah. So I played water polo, and for 8 years I've played water polo with one of the guys who is actually one of the pastors here at church, Conan, and he was one of the nicest guys on my team. He was the only Christian on my team, and over the years of coaching him, he stood out as quite a nice bloke, and I invited him along to my 21st birthday party, I remember, and he, for about 7 years, invited me along to come check out Jesus, kind of like the Meet Jesus series, and I reckon that was about number 13 on my priority list, and everything else was above it. And then COVID came along, and then all of a sudden it was priority number 3, and so I had time to do it, and I come and check out Jesus and the Bible for the first time ever as an adult, and it was. I had stacks of questions. I remember it was Zoom at the time. It was in the middle of COVID, and I remember. I think I was downstairs watching Netflix at the time, and then Conan sent me the text, "Hey mate, are you logging on?" And I was like, yeah, I suppose so. And logged on, and I sent him a text after, "Hey mate, we've got to catch up. Got a lot of questions." And we went for a swim. The only legal way you could hang out was public exercise at the time, so we went for a swim at Soldiers Beach. Chatting afterwards, and he said, "James, I'm 100% sure God is real, I'm 100% sure heaven is real, and I'm 100% sure I'm going." And my dad's a maths teacher, and I just thought, you're very certain about this, and I know you're not an idiot. And so I was very interested to keep checking things out. And about 15 weeks later, I was actually presented with this kind of question here: accept Jesus or reject Jesus. And I've been learning about stuff, and I'd come to know that I really needed Jesus, and it was only him who could give me what I needed in terms of understanding that my sins could not be dealt with in any other way, and that I wasn't going to heaven if I didn't come to put my trust in Jesus. And so, on the 4th of December 2020, on Conan's couch, I prayed to God for the first time. So
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That's great. That's cool to hear. How long do you think that journey was from first starting to investigate Jesus to that point of saying yes?
Yeah. It was about 15-ish weeks. So I came along to the Life series. I kept kind of catching up with Conan at the time. We did something called the More to Life series. There wasn't a lot of other people, so it was just me and Conan one-to-one, but I'm pretty sure that gets done as a group setting normally. That was really helpful because as I was learning about things, I was trying to just think about, is this true? And I really sussed out some of those non-biblical historical writings about Jesus, just to kind of make sure that the Bible, I could really trust it. I think it was about 15 weeks. But Conan started inviting me, 8 years before I put my trust in Jesus. So
Wow.
God had big long-term plans for me,
It's cool to hear. Yeah, and we'll talk more about that also life thing, which can happen in a one-to-one, but generally we do a group thing as well, so it's still a bit less pressure. You don't have to necessarily answer questions, but you can have a smaller group to be able to just go a bit back and forth on what is the Bible saying, kind of similar kind of setting to that here. So, James, then you painted the picture of what your kind of mission in life was, getting the Australian dream before.
Yeah.
What is life with Jesus like now? How's that changed your life? What's that?
Well, this was great because all those things weren't going super well to kick things off with. Trying to buy a house was really hard. My relationships wasn't really working out, and the other guys in my water polo team weren't rocking up to training, and it was just really frustrating. And so now actually knowing that I was created by God for Jesus, by Jesus, for Jesus, and getting to understand that I have the purpose of continuing to live my life with Him, getting to know Him more. That is not just the Australian dream, that's the human dream, and I'm getting to live that out. And so getting to actually do what I was kind of designed and created for has been a real joy. It's been super happy. It's been super happy for me, because being able to understanding why I was feeling the hurt of how things weren't working before, and then kind of being able to understand a bit about why that was the case was really helpful once I got to know God and myself a bit more clearly through reading the Bible, I think, and coming to church. So very thankful to be where I am now.
You don't want this?
You mentioned as well just that thing Colin said about being 100% sure, particularly of going to heaven.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've come to, and if so, what is that like knowing that now?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think initially when Conan said that, I thought, oh, that's pretty arrogant to maybe say. Like, how can you be 100% sure that's the case? But I'm now alongside what Conan said, and really alongside what God says in the Bible about what we can know 100%. And that's a great relief for me. I think I had a healthy fear of death. I remember the week before I came onto the Life series, a young guy who had just got his start in the NRL, had a shocking training accident and died that week. And I was just, it really made me think, I really don't know what's going to happen. I was not 100% sure about anything, and I really needed to know that if the answers were out there, I really wanted to know them. So now knowing that, and knowing that I'll be in heaven and with all my brothers and sisters who also trust in Jesus, yeah, it's a great feeling.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll give James a